service. Comment je débarque et caché, je dépêché, toujours monte au vallon. Nous autres vacances, sans même silence, pour votre monde avenue. Au vallon, histoire millénaire.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you, and thank you very much for coming back. For those of you that came yesterday, we got quite a few people here. So, what time did you all get up this morning? 9, 4, 6, 5? We got some great speakers. How many of you are already entrepreneurs? There's a few of you, isn't it? How many of you are not yet entrepreneurs, but you want to be entrepreneurs? Okay, all right, there's a few of you too. Interesting, in your dreams, right? Okay, well, your dreams might come true. That's what these things are, transformation sessions, really, aren't they? So, our very first entrepreneur is somebody, I mean, he's the entrepreneur's entrepreneur because he's somebody I met about 20 years ago at the Institute of Directors in London, and we've kept a friendship ever since. He did the Dizzy Entrepreneur, and he's done many things actually, and we've been blessed to have him flying from England. In fact, actually, he's been bending my ear since we did Dizzy, saying I want to come back. He couldn't wait to come back. Well, of course, with COVID, it couldn't happen, but without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Beer Mat himself, Mike Southern. A big hand, please.
Claude Bonte de Beauvalon, yes! There we go. Well, hello everybody, and hello again to some people who were here yesterday. So it's a joy to see you. So it's been a 2-day conference. Yesterday the theme was what we call intrapreneurship, which is how do you be an entrepreneur in an established business or government or anything, because I do a lot of that. Today is about entrepreneurship, and I'm pleased to say I do have different material today, though one or two of the slides are the same as yesterday, for those of you who weren't there. So that's my title slide. What you always do when you're presenting is you have to do what's called establish your authority. Like, why should you spend another 5 minutes listening to me? So I just came up with one slide. I've done lots of stuff. Here's some highlights. First thing is I have been an entrepreneur for 40 years. I started in 1983, and I've been doing it ever since. Many ups and downs, but I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've worked on, the first company was called The Instruction Set. I was talking about that story. It was about the technology which became the internet and the web. So I was there back in the day with Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and all those people, Jeff Bezos. I was just lucky. It was my friends from university who happened to be good at that stuff. I was just a salesperson. In 2002, I co-authored a book with Chris West called The Beer Mat Entrepreneur. That's why I'm known as the Beer Mat Entrepreneur. And this has been a very, very popular book. It's sold over 100,000 copies. And the reason it's a good book is that I didn't write it. Because what happened was I was teaching at a university and telling stories about entrepreneurship, and somebody said, you should write a book about that. I thought, yes, I should. Now, the clue to entrepreneurship, as I explained yesterday, is it really helps if there are two of you involved in your enterprise. And I'll talk about the types of people and where you fit in. My foil, as I call it, my opposite, is a very nice guy called Chris West. You'll see his name on the book there. I've known him since 1967. We met at school, and we've done bands together, we've done stuff. He is a novelist and a philosopher. He's got a degree in philosophy, and he writes novels. Now, philosophers make logical models. So all my crazy stories, he made sense out of, and you'll see a lot of it here. It's almost as if Chris is speaking, not me. And a novelist writes a novel, and I've met some novelists today already. With a novel, it's about stories about people. So it's not a book about the 97 ways to write a business plan. It's a story about how 3 friends go to a pub and they write on a beer mat, which is our metaphor, and this is the most important thing. And they turn their good idea into a great business. Because Beer Mat Entrepreneur could be about beer mats, it could be about pubs, but that's what we claim to help you with, to turn your good idea into a great business. Now, we can discuss what makes a great business, but I'll come to that later. So I've written lots of books, and I'm thrilled to be back in the Seychelles. I first started coming here in the 80s, just on holiday, and it was a very different place then. met Claude in London. We've been really good friends ever since. I did Dizzy Entrepreneur, some of you were here, and I'm thrilled to be back again. And let me make this absolutely clear. I want to come back next week. I mean, I'm here on holiday because my wife is here, her best friend lives in Anse-le-Mouche. So this to me is a holiday because, as I said yesterday, if you do what you love, and I love doing this, you'll never do a day's work in your life. So just hold this thought, which is after the conference, say to Claude, when is Mike coming back? Maybe next week, maybe the week after. I will be on a plane straight away because I love the Seychelles. I love small countries generally. You can get stuff done. I met with the minister yesterday. Everything you want to do, you can, as some friends of mine will tell you right at the end. So that's me. And this is, again, apologies to the people yesterday. It's the same slide, except instead of why be an entrepreneur, it's why be an entrepreneur. It's the same stuff. Because whenever I meet an entrepreneur, I say, so why are you doing this? Why? And you get various reasons, but here are the right reasons in the right order. And I make no apologies for the first one, which is we are here to make money. Don't be guilty about that. Don't think, oh, I ought to be doing this for the good of the world. No, let's make money first and save the world later. Because any good idea you have has got to make money or save money. Money is the best way of measuring anything. Time's not bad, but when you're pitching to somebody, let me help you, you're either going to generate some revenue for them or you're going to reduce their cost, or ideally both. So let's make money first. Then the other reasons people do it, this is generally the order I hear. You are all here and you're all in business to make a difference to yourselves and your families. Put food on the table, make a better life for them. This is like really obvious stuff. Make a difference to the world. Many of you will be social entrepreneurs. In fact, if you're employing people, you're a social entrepreneur. You're giving people employment. So it's a good thing. Make the world a better place. Yeah, why not? And being an entrepreneur is all about that in the right instance. And it's a lot of fun being an entrepreneur, isn't it? Those of you who are already entrepreneurs, aren't you having fun? Not the days when you're struggling to meet payroll, but generally it's good fun, because having fun is good. Freedom to do what you want. I can try something different. I hear so many stories of people saying, well, I married a Seychellois, I used to be in the army, this is what I just heard from a gentleman. Came to the Seychelles, he now runs restaurants, you know. Let's have fun, let's have some freedom to try something different, something new for yourself and make some money at it. And a lot of entrepreneurs tell me, look, Mike, it's in my genes, it's in my nature, I have to be an entrepreneur. I couldn't work for some big corporation anymore. And these people are generally unemployable in large companies because they keep saying, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, and they get asked to leave. But the real reason we all do what we do, let me define it this way, is we are all here, all us entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, to create wealth. Now there's a difference between wealth and money, which I'll explain in a minute. But if you do manage to create wealth, as well as money, you will end up as happy as these people. Look how happy they are. I have no idea who these people are. They come from PowerPoint land. They are actors. I was just speaking to somebody about brochures. Here are some actors probably pretending to be really happy. Okay, so what is wealth, as I define it? Oh, this is just a summary because, by the way, you don't need to take notes particularly because Claude has got all the slides. In fact, the slide set for this, there's about 30 in this one, I think 25. The whole is 50. It's just more information. It's just stuff. Please read through it. You can use it. You can attribute it, whatever you want to do with it. So this is just so you've got the list, because that slide obviously builds. So for a PDF, that just summarizes it. But a definition of wealth rather than money is as follows. Money is what you've got in your pocket, in your bank balance, in your spreadsheet. And if you've got more money this week than last week, you've had a good week, and the opposite as well. You've had a bad week if it's down. Now, wealth is what you would all have if suddenly your money vanished. You look in your bank account, it's gone. Maybe you were silly, maybe it was your fault, maybe somebody stole it. What are you left with? Well, you're left with who you are, your reputation, how nice you've been to people all these years. Because if you've been really obnoxious to people, people say, you've gone bankrupt, ha-ha, and I'll have a party to celebrate. Not so good. Because I like to think that if suddenly I was in a bad way financially, I'd just call up Claude and say, Claude, you're my friend, you've known me a long time. I'm quite good at sales, can I do some sales work for you? He'll say, well, yes, you are good at sales, or hopefully he says that, and he'll help me out. So it's your reputation, what you're left with. Because we all aim to live respected and die regretted. It's an old phrase I use somewhere else. So that's why we're here, to create wealth. Because if you create wealth, you'll make the world a better place and money will arrive. So let's create wealth. So the real measure of your wealth is how much you'll be worth if you lost all your physical money. So there we go, that's why we're here. So, here is the process for becoming an entrepreneur if you're just starting out. Because in our book, when we start, we say, so where do I fit in? Because you may think that all entrepreneurs have to be like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, God help us. Got to be that sort of extrovert lunatic and whatever. No. It's a lot simpler than that. Where do I fit in? Because understanding yourself is the most interesting of all human studies. You understand your own strengths and weaknesses, then you can decide where there's gaps, where you need to learn stuff, where you get somebody else in to do different tasks, and so on. Because when we started writing the book, me and Chris, we sat down and said, well, what are the characteristics of a successful entrepreneur? And every entrepreneurship book, including ours, comes up with this list. So see if you can see yourself on the left-hand side of the diagram. I think you'd agree, you've got to be confident to be an entrepreneur. You've got to go out and sell yourself and so on. If you're shy and you can't get out of bed in the morning, get some therapy, because you've got to be confident. Yeah, my idea is great. My coffee is great. My hotel is great. You've got to be charismatic. Not necessarily in an extrovert way like I am, because I'm very showy, but you're more sort of, you're charismatic in a more reserved way. You're a technical person, perhaps. Then full of energy, because if you're lazy, entrepreneurship is not for you. You've got to get up every day at 5 o'clock in the morning and do stuff. If that is just so against your nature, go and work for a big company and try not to get fired. Focused, because all the entrepreneurs I meet have got, loads. I've had 20 ideas this morning. In fact, just hearing you talk about hotels, maybe I'll start a hotel, even though I do bookkeeping at the moment. Got to be focused, and a lot of when I mentor people is getting them focused. Let's focus on one idea. Let's focus on the next thing you need to do. And you've got to be ambitious. I want to have a great company, not necessarily huge, but I want to be successful, profitable, make the world a better place, make people like me, and so on, and in a hurry. Yeah, let's do it now, not, maybe next week, maybe the week after. Now, when I was preparing my talks for Claude, he says, do remember we have an island culture. The implication being that people don't like to work or whatever. We have an island culture too in Great Britain. It's the same thing, and I hear all the complaints that you say here, and I can't be bothered, people don't turn up on time. It's a difficult thing to solve, but entrepreneurs have to be all those things. So do you see yourselves on that left-hand side of the diagram? That's you, you're an entrepreneur. Chris said, yep, and every entrepreneurship book says those things. It's Richard Branson talking, or whoever talking about, that's me. I'm Richard Branson, I'm all those things. Chris, who is a philosopher, said, but there's always the other side present. Because if you're confident, you can often be arrogant. I always say the borderline between confidence and arrogance is very narrow. And I spend a lot of time trying to say, look, I think you're a bit overconfident here. I don't use the word arrogant, it's negative. If you're charismatic, you can be manipulative. People like me, so I can get you to do bad things for me. That's a bad example. Full of energy, you're exhausting. Oh, Mike's had another idea. And if you're focused, you can be obsessive. Because sometimes you have to stop a business because it's not working. Well, oh no, it's going to work, it's going to work, it's going to work, and you go bankrupt too quickly. If you're ambitious, you can be ruthless. There's a difference between ruthless and being firm with people. Ruthless is just, I'm going to fire you because I want to fire somebody today. That's wrong. I mean, we've all seen it. Sometimes we've suffered from it. And if you're in a hurry, they can be impatient. Now, come on, Mike, relax. We don't have to do it today because today you promised to do this, but maybe tomorrow. So there's a yin and a yang there, and opposites. It took me about 10 years to work out that Chris was talking about me in the right-hand column, but there's a little personal. I've known him a long time. He can talk to me about it. But once you understand that all of us in our lives, at any point in our business careers, have elements of both, and you know when you're being a bit on the right-hand side of the column, and you've got good people in your company, you can say, Mike, settle down, we need to talk, then you stand a chance of succeeding. So let me make business, well, let me just talk about this, because I've been to 1,000 conferences, probably not as many as that, where the big debate is, are entrepreneurs bored or are they made? Is it in your nature or is it something you learn along the way? Now, I've had this debate with people hundreds of times, and the answer is obviously both. Otherwise, we'd have come to, there's me probably talking about it then. It's got to be both, otherwise we'd have worked out it's either nature or nurture and we'd tell everybody. So there's a bit of both. So you're born with a set of qualities in your DNA, whatever, your heritage, whatever it might be, but there's other skills you will need, but you can learn them. That's the point. And you've got to work at them. Sometimes it's a bit difficult, so I'm going to talk about that. So there's only 3 key skills in business. Because I was teaching undergraduates at university, hundreds of them, and I tried to make business as simple as possible, because that's really my superpower apart from sales is, let's get it so it fits on a beer mat. So it's really simple, so it's basic, so anybody can understand it, it's really clear. So, there's 3 responsibilities. I'll put the most important one first, not just because it's the one that I do, and of course you need revenue. Because again, the difference between a good business and a bad business, especially if I'm trying to sell, is money comes in. If you can't sell anything, think about something else. So you need revenue. So somebody in your organization has to be right. I'm focused on revenue. It can be an extrovert person. It doesn't have to be, as I'll show you. The other thing is then delivery. So I make a promise. Oh, you've got to come to the Seychelles. There's this fantastic hotel. Okay. Somebody's got to make the hotel. So I love this place, the Eden Blue. You know, I've stayed here a few times. My wife's here as well. We're having the most wonderful time. I would recommend this hotel to anybody, but making it clear that it's not a beach hotel. If you want a beach hotel, there's probably another one I can recommend. So, but somebody has to actually run the hotel. And finally, somebody's got to do all the finance, which is, Mike sold a lot of places at the hotel, we're running the hotel, are we making a profit? Could we increase profit by improving the margins or whatever it is? So the 3 jobs, delivery, revenue, finance. Revenue being the most important one in my world. That's kind of obvious, isn't it? Now, all of you will probably be good at one of those, primarily. So I'll go into those. Because the character types that match on those particular activities are, a magnet is somebody that's good at revenue. So I like to think of myself as a magnet. Hopefully I create attraction. I can tell some people think I talk too much, and I'm too full of myself and whatever else. But a magnet is somebody who will walk up to strangers and say, hi, and let me talk about, you know, I just did a networking event. They're the ones that go up and network and talk to people. They're natural magnets. Then there's makers, which is, oh no, I'm the person who builds the hotel, who cooks the meals, who writes the software, whatever it is. And a monitor is somebody who's very good at measuring outcomes. Magnet, maker, monitor. So let me talk about the attributes, see if you can recognize yourself, which one you are personally. So the attributes of a magnet, you know, there's another bunch of actors, young actors, because this was from my university days. Young people being magnets, they're always having a party of some sort. They're the person responsible, big word, for generating revenue. That was only ever my job in any company I worked in. Mike, bring in revenue. In a way, we don't care how you do it, we don't do anything illegal, but bring in revenue, don't worry about delivery or finance. So, popular and well-connected individual, and Claude Bonte de Beauvalon, he's a popular and well-connected individual. I think he's a magnet. He hasn't done my little test, but I can guess it's true. And they will say, oh yeah, of course we can. Yes, we can. Do anything. I've got an idea for opening up a different type of, oh yeah, of course we can do that. Yes, yes. So they will say yes to everything. Richard Branson's a bit like that. And business ideas are generated from listening to customers saying, I'll tell you what we need here in the Seychelles. Oh yeah, we can do that. I've decided. Claude, I've just promised him we're going to do this. Can you help me out? So find somebody who knows how to do whatever it is he wants. There we go. So that's what a magnet does. That may be you. Secondly, a maker. They're actually responsible for the products and service, the delivery of what you do. So I make promises about a great hotel. I'm not cleaning the rooms. They get somebody else to do that. They're a subject matter expert. I know how to run hotels. And in fact, I was speaking to a gentleman, I don't think he's here now. He was in the army, in the Royal Signals. Now he married a Seychellois, and he runs restaurants, and she's the cook. And he spends a lot of his time talking to the customers. He goes into magnet mode, but he's there to make sure it runs like a well-oiled machine. He's ex-military, is in his nature. And they're quite often an introvert, and they often say, when I say, Claude, right, we're going to open up a new hotel. Yes, Mike, but, you know, yes, but. And I get a lot of yes, buts from my co-author, Chris West. I'll say, I've had this idea for a book, yes, but. And I listen to Chris. My wife is the same. I have all sorts of ideas. She's completely opposite to me. She's actually a monitor, as you'll see. But this is the voice of reason. And business ideas come from working out a solution to a difficult problem. How could we do a hotel at this point in the Seychelles, and how do we do our social media marketing stuff, having that conversation? How do we do stuff? And finally, the monitor is just somebody who measures. And they are the king or queen of the spreadsheet. My wife is like that. I nearly felt sorry for our builders when she was measuring them on a spreadsheet. So that's how it works. They measure cash flow and profit, because when businesses go broke, they get broke because they run out of money. It is as simple as that. They're good with numbers and expert with spreadsheets. And they're often an introvert for saying things like, yeah, we can improve our margins. If we get a slightly cheaper clicker, we can make more money, or there's a better way of washing sheets, or whatever it is we do at the hotel. So that's how that works. And business ideas that they come up with, saying, I've worked out a way of running a hotel even better. Look at the spreadsheet. I love watching spreadsheets now. So there we go. So are you, based on what I said, in your mind thinking, I'm probably a magnet or a maker or a monitor? You may have come to a conclusion. Well, the good news is there's lots of profiling systems. Some of you may have done Belbin and Myers-Briggs and DISC and all that. I love them, often a bit too complicated. On my site, and Claude will send you a link, they all map onto each other. I've got a free BeerMat profiling tool on my site. We just answer some questions, and it says, congratulations, you're either a magnet, a maker, or a monitor. You're good at this and you're bad at that, or you need help doing that. It's a free test. There's no sign up on my site. I'm not trying to capture your information. But if you're not sure, well, when I speak to somebody and I say, well, tell me about yourself, give me your background, I come to a conclusion. You're a magnet, a maker, or a monitor, or a combination. But once you understand yourself, you can do that. So there's no sign up on my site if you happen to end up there. But I'll make sure Claude gets you that link. But every day, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to do all three tasks. Sorry, sometimes you're being a magnet. Come to my hotel. Sometimes it's, well, we need to cook a meal. Sometimes it's, we're spending a lot on shrimp or something. You have to do all three jobs. My least favorite is the spreadsheet. But I've learned how to do it, because the main spreadsheet is my diary. I am ruthless about my diary. I don't get things wrong. I'm never late for anything. What am I doing today? I'm getting on a bit. I've only got a few more years, or hopefully 20, 30 years. Every minute counts. I look at my spreadsheet, which is my diary, every single day to make sure I'm using every minute as well as I can. So you'll be doing all three. You'll be a magnet promoting, you'll be delivering, and you'll be measuring everything. You have to do it, and you have to steel yourself to do the ones. But in the BeerMat model, we say, if there's a job you hate, find somebody else to do it with you, somebody you trust. And that's a hard call sometimes, and especially if it's a monitor, because they could be stealing from you. So if there's a job you really hate, get somebody to do it. So when I'm mentoring entrepreneurs and they say, can I bring my co-founder, I'm like, hooray, because I bet one of them's an extrovert and one of them's an introvert, and I can tell just by the way they're sitting. And that's a good combination. So, is my business idea very good? People say, here's my business idea, what do you think? And I say, brilliant. Someone's going to make a lot of money out of that, let's see if it's you. Now, the same question was asked to this gentleman, William Goldman, who's one of the best script writers who ever lived. He's passed away now, sadly. He got asked the same question I get asked about business plans, which is, how can you tell from a film script it's going to be a successful movie? And in his book, which I thoroughly recommend, Adventures in the Screen Trade, he said, in Hollywood, nobody knows anything. You can do all the work on a film, and you can do it and make the best effort. You only find out if it's going to be a successful movie when you ask somebody for $10 to buy a ticket. That's when you find out. And certain movies, they thought this is going to be a big hit. It wasn't. And there's another movie, it was back in the 1940s, where they had a studio system where actors were signed up to a particular studio for 5 years. And if there's two people on the shelf, they made a film with them. They had this man and this woman who, from the first moment, hated each other. There was no chemistry at all. The script was awful. The ending was terrible. Everyone thought this was going to be a complete turkey. That was a film called Casablanca, which is one of the most popular films ever. So you just don't know. Because my job as a magnet, as a salesperson, is to get your good idea perhaps and say, hello, can I have £10 please, to see what happens. If they say no, it doesn't bother me. Oh, never mind. That's the only difference between you and me. I've got a really thick skin. You move on. You find out when you ask for money. So I can always tell. I worked for plenty of startups where I tried to sell their stuff and failed. I had to go back saying, I've tried everything. Nobody wants to buy your stuff, and I didn't even know why. Sometimes they got angry. It's your fault. I'm thinking, well, it's my fault for not telling you this 6 months ago or 3 months ago. So the problem is you have products and services that people don't want for reasons I can't work out. But the key thing in all entrepreneurship, this is an important bit of content, and there's PDFs and so on, is you've heard of the term the elevator pitch. And I was hearing them in this networking event. So the elevator pitch is, how can you describe what you do in 15 seconds? Because the model is, you get into an elevator, you've got 15 seconds to pitch somebody, and then they're going to walk out. Now, you're not going to sell anything. And all you were trying to do is to win 15 minutes. So a good elevator pitch is 15 seconds long and will win you 15 minutes. Here is the structure of the elevator pitch. Because people say, I run a hotel. Okay, that's the second part of the elevator pitch. Because there are three elements. First is the pain or problem you solve. So if it's a hotel case, if you're looking for a good hotel in the Seychelles that suits your needs, maybe a boutique hotel or a big hotel or a beach hotel, we solve that problem. Your premise is, we have a hotel that you want, and then proof is, here's a customer who can confirm what we said. Pain, premise, proof. Because if you want to do something to your LinkedIn profile, say, hello, I'm so-and-so, I solved the problem of somebody trying to buy real estate in the Seychelles, getting the best coffee. That's what I was hearing this morning, different examples. Pain, premise, proof. So where's the pain? So what problem do you solve? I always ask the question first when I mentor entrepreneurs. And it's really difficult for people to get the best hotel in the Seychelles, for example, the one that really suits them. And there's no one size fits all. And wouldn't it be great if people could stay at the best hotel and have the best experience? Then premise, you just say, I fix that. No details then, because a lot of people say, well, we do this, we've got this hotel and that hotel, and there's this meal and that meal. Too many features too early, it's as if the elevator gets stuck for several hours and they can't get out. And the more you talk at them, the less they like it. So I just solved that problem, no more details at this stage. Proof, why you? Well, you say, well, that's enough selling from me. It's only been 10 seconds. Here's a real customer. An informal endorsement of a mentor. Now, this is the best kind of customer. Not only are they a good customer, they love coming there, they'll tell everybody, oh, great hotel I stayed in. They'll say, I'll tell you what you should have in a hotel. You should have a different type of coffee, or this, or that, or the other. They're giving you good input, and they're telling all their friends. They're doing word of mouth for you. It's someone you can trust, and ideally somebody knows somebody with deep pockets. I know lots of rich people who'd love to come to this hotel. Hooray. They'll do the selling for you. Because when I try and sell things, I try and sell them to rich people or rich organizations. It's a lot easier than to poor organizations. It's kind of obvious. There we go. But you may say, but Mike, I don't know anybody. I'm not like you, I'm not networked. Well, the answer is yes, you do. And here's a bit of content which I want you to look up, because I'll just mention it, which is a famous sociologist called Dunbar came up with what's called Dunbar's number, which is how many people do you really know well? Not your friends on social media. And the test is to say, walk through the door now, out of context. You recognize them. Oh, yes, that's so-and-so. And you like them. If it's somebody you don't like, it's I'm not here. And you've got some idea of what they're doing. And that number for everybody, even the shyest person in the room, I mean, I think most of you are shyer than me, but even for me, it's only 150 people. We've got that good relationship. Because you only know 150 people, they only know 150 people. You're 1 degree separated from 22,500 people. That's enough business for anybody. So look up the Dunbar number, and the tool you use to build what your Dunbar number is, of all the social media platforms, my favorite is LinkedIn. Because LinkedIn is really a job site. There's my CV, and headhunters can find you. But on there, if it's somebody, oh, whatever happened to somebody I liked, I knew 5 years ago, if they're on LinkedIn, you can improve your own profile and track down people that you like. So, and you just send them a message. Hey, how you doing? Do you fancy a coffee? Should we have a catch up? And I have plenty of people who, they'll see me for a coffee just because I can tell stories, or what happened to you in the Seychelles, or I was just in Estonia, that was fascinating. And you ask their advice. What do you think I ought to be selling? Do you know anybody who might be interested? So use LinkedIn. It's the best tool that I can recommend. So I'll give you 3 final words from 3 very wise people. Sorry, it's the same slide as yesterday. Confucius, apparently he said this. I don't quite believe it, but it's a figure of speech. It's what I said. Choose a job you love and you'll never do a day's work in your life. There we go. Love what you do. If you hate your job, please do another job. I go into big corporations, they're all miserable. And when the boss isn't there, I say, look, do something else. What's your passion? Teach kids, do something else. Do dog walking, have a side hustle. So do what you love. And I hope you'll do what you love and you're passionate about it, because it's not like work. And you don't mind getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to come to Claude's event. And then the Beatles, they're my specialist subject. If you want to know more about the Beatles, I can go on about them for days. I do know somebody who was in the Beatles once, a guy called Pete Best. But the Beatles, John Lennon himself, you've probably heard of this guy, he wrote a song specifically for entrepreneurs, I've decided. And here's what he said. So listen in. John Lennon nails it absolutely. This is from 1967. Just check this out. There we go. The guy nails it. This is my motivational message for you all. There is nothing you can do that can't be done. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy. Because John Lennon said it. I say some kind of the first thing. I mean, first, all you need is love. You've got to love what you do, love your customers, love the universe, love everybody, and that love will come through and people want to buy from you. But we say in our book, and we stand by this is my final message, that business is simple. Now, it's long hours and hard work, of course. But if there's a problem or if there's an issue or a challenge or whatever, the solution is simple. You can get that. I can write it down for you on a beer mat. More than a beer mat, it's a business plan. That's different, that's later. But every solution, it's usually about people, a difficult customer, a difficult employee, and the solution is always very straightforward. Sometimes it's just avoid those people if you can. And that's it. So business is simple. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Mike Sullivan. Thank you. Back to Claude.
Thank you very much, Mike. Let's hear it for Mike. Mr. Beer Mat himself. So we've got quite a range of people speaking today about different subjects and different aspects of entrepreneurship. So I hope the people that want to be entrepreneurs are going to take something from one of the people that they listen to. So maybe you can connect with one person better than the other person. Or people that are already entrepreneurs, and that's quite interesting. What I used to find is going through the journey of being an entrepreneur, there's always challenges that you are going to have. And when you're listening to people, you think, I see, so that was how that chap solved that challenge. That's a very creative way of doing it. So can we please have the 1 minute clip?
What it involves, the discipline, the hard work, and the sacrifices that one has to make for the business to grow and to survive and to prosper. Etching is a very old technique, and you basically scratch your design. You etch your design on either copper or zinc plates using a very fine needle. Don't depend on anybody to achieve your aim, Just rely on yourself. You can't have any excuses, but yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. George Camille. Seminar. High five. There you are.
Okay, let me just put my phone there. Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Claude, for inviting me to come and speak a bit about myself, about what I do. I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm an artrepreneur. There's a big difference. Are there any artists in the room here? Oh, sorry, yeah, I need one of those. Yeah, I'm a painter, sculptor, printmaker, and textile designer. But I consider myself an entrepreneur because I've managed to turn my passion into a business. And I hope I can inspire some of the younger people in the group here today, in the hall, who wants to start their own business. to choose something that they like to do, and don't think too much about it. Just put your head down and just get on with it. I've been an entrepreneur now for almost 40 years. It wasn't something that I thought too much about it. I didn't plan too much. I just had to do it. You know. So I will. This is an overview of what I. Okay. I'll present you an overview of what I do. As I say, I'm a painter, so I do a lot of bright collages, canvases. A lot of the work I do is techniques I've actually researched myself, created, because any business you want to do, somebody else is doing it, so you've got to be different, you know? Because why would somebody buy your stuff when there's 100 others they can choose from? So you've got to always come up with an innovative way of actually selling the same thing to people, but packaging it differently, and so that it's something wow, and they'll buy it. So, and living and working in Seychelles, of course, it's the color, you know, it's island life. I'm painting my own life, my own experience. I'm painting me, and that's the best thing to go along. Whatever you do, just be honest and true to yourself. You can't go wrong, you know. Don't make things complicated. So these are some of the images of work that I do. These are etchings. You saw the small clip of me scratching. So another technique that I learned and I've perfected and I love, and it's something that takes you hours, you know, like 2 weeks to create an image. But as Mike just said, you know, when you do something that you love, you're not working, you know. You enjoy doing it, and the reward, if somebody likes it at the end of the day, you feel better, you know. And so I do a lot of etchings, watercolor. As an artist, if you've decided, right, this is going to be my work, my life, you've got to enjoy it. You've got to reinvent yourself. You've got to always trying to experiment and create new things, new ways of actually realizing a work of art, so that it keeps you engaged. It keeps you in love with what you do. This is another etching. Canvas, painting on canvases. And then I do sculptures as well, and which I decorate and try and come up with a different way of the famous Coco de Mar. And these are mixed media work, looking around, and as an artist you try and, anything you can get your hands on, look at it for long enough, it'll talk to you and you'll be able to create something out of it that nobody else has thought of before. Okay, so this is a brief overview of what I do. As I said, I consider myself lucky in that I've managed to create a career out of being an artist, which is not easy. Everybody, when they come up to me, says, "Warrior, I'm a painter, I'm an artist. Can you earn a living from it?" Yes, you can earn a living. With anything you can, any kind of business you want to go down, or you want to do, if you work hard at it and you're convinced that nothing can stand in your way, you can earn a living from it. It's not easy. It's hard. In fact, being an artist, I think it's one of the most difficult career one can choose. Because why does somebody want to buy a painting? You know, it's not a necessity, you know. If you're offering a service, yes, I need my hair cut, I need my teeth fixed, you'll go and you'll pay, and it's guaranteed. But nobody wants to come and just buy a painting for the sake of it, unless you're actually selling more to them than a painting. You know, and that's the tricky part is, because there's a lot of very good artists, but they can't earn a living from their art. There's a lot of mediocre artists who's actually successful. So there's a combination of the two. You know, you need to have talent, of course, for the point of departure. Any business you choose to go down to do, you need to know what you're doing, but also you need to be able to know business in terms of how to run a business, you know, all the different aspects of a business. And for me, at the beginning was, I just come back from my studies from London. I went on a scholarship. I came back, And I was supposed to be a teacher. So I went back to the ministry and, okay, I've come back, you know, I want a job. But back in the 80s, when I came back, things were very different in Seychelles. You know, politics had a lot of, you know, pervaded a lot of people's lives. So they wouldn't give me a job. Oh, you know, in London when you were studying, you know, you frequented such and such a person, so sorry, you know. So what do you do? And for me, that's the best point of departure for a business. You do it because you, out of necessity, you know, you needed it to earn a living, you know, and I was a good artist. So I don't need people to employ me. I can create my own thing. So it was something I didn't think too much about. I just went into it. Didn't have to write long business plans. I didn't go and borrow a lot of money. In fact, I started with 300 rupees I borrowed from my sister on my mother's kitchen table. I knew how to screen print. I knew how to design. So I thought, and I looked around at that time. In Seychelles, there was only one place that were doing screen printing. What they were doing, I knew I could do better, differently. And that's how I started. Didn't give it much thought. So I started doing that. And my cousin, who was just opening a shop on La Digue, said, okay, well, if you're going to do T-shirts or pareos, I'm opening a shop so you can supply me. And that's how it started. I bought 25 T-shirts. I screen printed it. And he bought that. So this is, I had a lot more hair then. So this is me starting out, screen printing, and it's something that I learned. I mean, after all, I'm a textile designer. That's what I studied. Even back then, you know, when I wanted to go on scholarship, I wanted to be a fine artist, but there was no scholarship. You know, they wouldn't give you. Who wants, you know, it wasn't a career. You know, we don't give scholarships to people to study fine art. In the 80s in Seychelles, you didn't get. So, okay, I decided then, they offered me either architecture or textile design. And I thought, okay, I'll go for, because my maths is not that good for architecture. So I decided to go and do textile design in London. And this is when I started. Just a very simple basic equipment, just a very simple table. And then this is jumping it, because this is one of my first shops I opened in the 80s at Beauvalon. It doesn't exist anymore. But when I started, I was supplying T-shirts to my cousin on La Digue. And I wanted to open my own space. In fact, my own space I opened, I don't have a photo, was a stall in Victoria Market. You know, because, you know, I didn't have the money to actually rent a shop. That's when you start, you know. A lot of young entrepreneurs, I think they fail because they think too far ahead. You know, they commit themselves with big bank loans. For me, I started small and I grow naturally. It was a natural growth. You can control it. You know, there's nothing worse than indebting yourself before you even start. And then you're working to pay debt, not working to earn a living. And it's a completely different thing. So, but this place was a wreck. It was an old place. There was no roof. I approached the landlord and said, look, I will do it up and I'll turn it into a shop. And in fact, that was the first sort of investment I did. I did that. But my flagship store was, again, I rented a space in Market Street. I turned it into my first shop. Both of these don't exist anymore. This was the interior. So I was focusing more on textile. I mean, in any business when you start, it's good to have a partner. It's good to have somebody to help you. You can't do it alone. It's more difficult to do it alone. So I was lucky. I had my wife, who was a fashion designer. So we did it together. You know, and the story they said that behind every man there's a very strong woman. It's very true. She's the one. I'm an artist, laid back. She's the one actually was the driving force, you know. And I think you need that combination. You need the yin and yang. You need the support. You need that. So she was the fashion designer. I was the textile. So we were creating all these products. And then obviously my mother's kitchen table proved too small. So I moved to a small studio. And eventually I found an old place in Victoria, an old rundown building, which is where I really started. The business started to really grow. So this is Jane, my wife, going up the workshop, yeah. And so we started there, and the business grew, the demand was there, and I was producing a lot of textile T-shirts. And in the space of about 4 or 5 years, we grew from just being me to about employing 30 people. So it was really, it happened so quickly, so fast. And so we had the tables, we had the printing machines like Carousel, we had 2 of those. A lot of kids used to come to visit and see how T-shirts are printed. So, silk paintings. So I was always on designing products, trying to find out new ways of creating craft items, clothing that people would like. And so silk painting was another technique I learned, and I had 6 girls painting these. And then textiles, we used to do a lot of fashion shows. I'd say my wife was a fashion designer. So I used to paint all these textiles, these fabrics, and we used to do a lot of fashion shows in hotels. Oh, sorry, my microphone. And used to even taking it to Reunion, where we used to. So I didn't go straight into being a visual artist. You had to find somewhere else, some other way of using your talent to create a product that people would want to buy. So textile obviously was the easy route to start. And this is presently where I'm at. So today, say this is my factory. This is my studio that where I work. Again, it was I built it myself, built it myself. And that's allowed me to actually focus more on my art, because everybody who worked in Seychelles and can you hear me? Am I putting microphone 2 down? Yeah. Okay. My business, like a lot of people's business, shifted in the late 90s, early 2000s because of the problem with foreign exchange in Seychelles. It was the law of diminishing return. To print, to do textiles, you need a lot of money to buy raw material, and it was difficult to do that. So the business kind of closed naturally because we couldn't actually keep up with the production. And it was then at that point that I decided, right, I need to relook at what I'm doing and then make this shift from being a textile craftsperson to being an artist. So that's when I did the shift and decided, right, I'm going to focus more on being an artist, because it was easier to get paint and brushes and canvases than containers of T-shirts and paints, So that's when it is. So I set up my studio where I had different aspects, different studios within that, where I could carry out the different techniques that I do, whether it's etchings or painting. This is my gallery in Victoria. Again, I was lucky because one of the things I learned very early in business is that when you need a space to operate, whether it's a workshop or a point of sale, and you rent it, there's no guarantee that, because it takes years for you to build, if you want a gallery, to build a space where it will have a reputation and people will come to you, it takes a long time. I mean, being an artist, it's a long-term career. You don't get success overnight. You work at it. And I had the shop that I had in Victoria, which I was running for about 25 years, suddenly overnight the landlord decided, right, I'm going to quadruple your rent. That's why I closed down. So this place, I managed to buy it in the 90s and do it up, an old Creole house, and now it's my flagship gallery. And it's always better to own your own place, whether where you work or where you sell. It's not easy, but it's worth the extra sacrifice, because you guarantee that a stable space where you can run your business from. And for me, that was a labor of love when I found that place. It was obviously, I rebuilt it completely. It was completely rotten, the house. 4 years. I wanted to maintain the same architecture, because it was a period where I was actually doing a lot of work, painting and drawing old Creole houses. So initially it was to be my home, but when I was doing it, I thought, this is too nice. This should be a gallery where other people can come in and look at the place and enjoy the space. And then you can see some of the examples of work I do. This is my other gallery, which I run on Le Digue, because I am from Le Digue. My family is originally from Le Digue, so I managed to get this property and turn it into a gallery. And of course, being an artist, for me, it's more than just painting to sell. You know, for me, the bottom line is that it's never been about the money. It's always been about the passion. It's about creating the things. And if somebody buys it at the end of the day, then it makes you feel about yourself, and it validates what you do. So my focus has always been on challenging myself to come up with a collection of work that I can exhibit and show it to people, not just in Seychelles, but all across the world. So my art has taken me to the far corners of, from all over Europe, Asia, and Africa, and even trade fairs in Mauritius. That was probably in the 90s. Again, the products I was making, people liked it, and I was selling it to shops in Mauritius, in Reunion, even a shop in France where I was selling them. And the emphasis was on the quality of the stuff I was producing, because people had to, you were appealing to people who wanted a very high standard in terms of what the products you were making. For me as an artist, one of the highlights of my career was taking part in the Venice Biennale, and this is the exhibition I did in 2015, where Léon Radegon and I were selected to go and represent Seychelles there. It was a piece it was a comment about protecting the environment and how there were far too many unchecked development happening in Seychelles, big hotels, big houses, cutting down trees. And so I drew the parallel between that and the invasive vines that were taking over killing off a lot of endemic plants. And every time one of these houses built, they had to cut through and lay the electricity cable to actually supply electricity to these places. These are recycled cables that I got from the electricity company, and I turned them. Each one had to be bent one by one with pliers to create these vines. This was another one of these projects which I worked on, the Giant Tortoise Parade, which I created the tortoise, and then we got 16 artists in Seychelles to paint them, obviously with an environment message, and we took that as well to Venice. And this was the third exhibition I did, again in Venice, after having won the Seychelles Biennale. This was to do with the tsunami, where I created this room full of waves with paper. This was the Seychelles Biennale in 2017. And of course, as an artist, it's good when what you do is validated. So these are some of the awards I won. And this is an exhibition in Mali, in Italy. In Dakar. This is the biggest public art I've done. It's for the Quadrant in town. Painted mural in town. And the most recent work I've done, it was for the Canopy Hotel. Okay, thank you. Now, any questions? Claude, am I allowed to take questions? I do. I love fish. In fact, one of my first studios was next to Victoria Market in the 90s, my first studio that I had. And I had to walk through the market. You remember, yeah? Yeah, so I had to walk through the market, and I was drawing a lot of market. of fish. And for me, the fish was, because I'm a Christian, it's a Christian symbol. So I was using it a lot as a symbol in some of my work, which I haven't shown. But I love to do the fish because it's a vehicle for color. You see? No, I'm a Virgo.
Not a question, just want to say that you can say that the artist is established when they have a recognizable style. And you are one of these very few Sichuan artists that have a recognizable style. Like the fish standing up upwards, no one else is painting like that. And if I see any paintings anywhere in the world, if I see yours, I will be able to recognize it.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's very important for, it's not a conscious thing when you as an artist, when you do something, but you find that you repeat things, you know. I revisit motifs, scenes, because it's you, you know, you count on. And you I try not to create too much of a style because I work in so many different techniques and style. You know, if you go to visit my gallery, there's sometimes people come in and say, are all these done by the same artist? Because this is like 40 years of work, because you're always changing to keep yourself interested in what you do. You're always looking for a different way of expressing. But as you say, yeah, something sticks and then it becomes yours, and people recognize you for that. And that's, you can't get around that, you know.
George, what do you think, how important is aesthetics and art and beauty for society generally?
I think the question doesn't, and therefore it is very important, you know. People don't realize it, that art forms is part of your life, whether you're an artist or not. It is there, you know. Everything, you know, and everybody is an artist in a way, because you all make choices every day. You all live in a house, and your house is you. You know, you personalize what goes in your house. Some people like, I mean, some things that other people will not like, but it's, at the end of the day, it's you. Aesthetic is very important because it's, I think as humans, you know, we live in a society now where we're not hunter-gatherers anymore, you know. You've got time, and people have got time and money, and that's why they surround themselves with things. It's nice to look at something that can make you feel better about yourself, you know. And for me as an artist, I'm conscious of that, because you have to, you know. I'm in the creative industry, and aesthetic, it's all about aesthetic, you know. And I've learned over the years when I've been painting, I know what sells. It's almost down to a formula, you know. It is a product. At the end of the day, I'm creating a product, you know, and I want people to buy that product. And so you will do it. And the study's been done about what makes a perfect painting, you know, or sculpture. So it's that. These things you learn, you know, and it becomes part of how you create the work at the end of the day, and what colors to use, you know. Of course, when you go to school, you learn all these, you know, basics of what you know, to be an artist, you know, in terms of composition, colors, and all that. But aesthetic forms a big part of what you do, you know, and it's very important, you know. I mean, otherwise, can you imagine living in a world without design, without art, without, you know? And I'm lucky that I've been able to use that and create a business out of it. But I've always, you know, been handed the dilemma of, like, you know, to stay true to being an artist in the real sense, you know, or just to be a commercial artist. I mean, there's a big difference between that, and you're always conscious of that, and try to do something that's not too naff, too sort of like, you know, that doesn't have soul, that's just painting for the sake of, you know. But yeah, it's important, yeah.
George, thank you very much. That was absolutely brilliant. So come on, give George a big round of applause. Well done, absolutely brilliant. Now, like I say, how many of you here can draw or like drawing? I like drawing, but I'm not a good artist. I'm not certainly not at his level. So us creatives, we all have different gifts. And how many of you have passed Shell Medical, the place over there at Le Rocher? Anybody? A few of you. Have you ever wondered what goes on in there? Because I wondered that for a long time. I used to drive past Shell Medical and I thought, medical, what do they do? You know, that's interesting. So our next entrepreneur is a really interesting character, actually. So please, can we have the little short intro? Our story starts with Dr. Archie Brain, who's an amazing inventor, as you'll see for yourself.
So now you have an empty guitar which can go in the case. This is your patient's head. You're standing behind them. You do that and you look inside here and you make that run and then you push it in with your finger until it's all the way inside. When you give an anesthetic, if you don't do anything, your patient will die. You've got to then make sure that they're breathing.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Archie Brain.
Hello everybody. I've heard two wonderful presentations and I'm very impressed. I feel somewhat shy because I think it's probably the first time I've spoken to a non-medical audience, although I've spent more than 35 years speaking all over the world to people in their, when possible in their own language, about my career. And of course, then it's easy because I'm speaking to doctors. So I'm somewhat at a loss, really, as to what to leave out and what to speak. And I certainly don't want to bore anybody. So this is one of the things I do, and that's me playing the guitar, which I made. Like something you might find in a pawn shop. And I got into quite a lot of trouble once. I was doing some work in a nurse's home in London, and I was accused of actually running this business from the nurse's home of a London teaching hospital. So I've had its ups and downs, but I've had a long and very interesting career. But it's fascinating to hear the two preceding speakers, who are absolutely fascinating. And I have to say that I haven't got the sort of presentation which I would like to have done, because it's very difficult to know what a non-medical audience really wants to hear about medical things. Some people don't want to hear anything about it at all. But I was a lecturer in anesthetics in London, and after having worked in several foreign countries. My father was a diplomat, and I have spent very little time in my own country of England. So I feel very at home when I'm not in England, which has been the case for most of my life. So I've tried to sort of put this into a form in which it's digestible by non-medical people. So whereas we've heard very much the viewpoint of the entrepreneur, I'm absolutely not an entrepreneur because I know nothing at all and I have no talent whatsoever for business. But what I think I am, because I inherited it from both sides of my family, is I'm an inventor. And my object as a doctor was to try to solve a clinical problem, which has been a problem ever since anesthesia was invented. And the solution to the problem for the last 100 years before I thought about this idea was to try to keep the airway down into our lungs open when giving an anesthetic. Because when you're anesthetized, and I became an anesthetist, which is without having become an anesthetist, one would never know this or understand that it was necessary. But the big problem is to try to keep the patient's airway open once we are made unconscious, and we need to be unconscious in order to allow the surgeon to do what they want to do. So anesthesia was a fantastic invention, but we are left with the problem that once you put that needle in, made someone unconscious, they've got to go on breathing, otherwise in about 5 minutes you've got brain damage. So the traditional way of overcoming that was to put a tube, a plastic tube, into the trachea, the windpipe, and inflate it, and then you could squeeze air in and out with a bag, having the gases passing through a tube. And you've probably seen films or videos of this sort of procedure being done. So I found a way of overcoming the difficulty of putting this tube into place, and that's called the laryngeal mask. It's used in our hospital here, it's used all over the world, and it was a very long and difficult journey to get that onto the market. But, and this is where I differ radically from our first brilliant speaker, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a pure inventor trying to solve a problem, a rather arcane and difficult problem. So I needed someone who was a brilliant entrepreneur, and I found him. And his name was Robert Gaines Cooper, who at the time I met him was playing around with a plastics factory in Rosh Kaiman, which is the factory that was mentioned earlier on. And that factory is still producing the device which I've asked. I hope some of you have a chance to have a look at it. That's the flexible one you've got in your hand there. Yeah, it's for ENT surgery, ear, nose and throat surgery. So just to sort of take a few steps back, I think it's worth asking, what is an inventor as opposed to an entrepreneur? So that's really my contribution here to this lay audience, to try to make that distinction, because there is a difference in the motivation and in the work involved. Well, we've got to look at actually define the definition of an inventor, and I think it's worth just considering that when you are inventing something, you're actually doing something which is a radical departure from what's been done before. Otherwise, it's really more like an incremental change. And I've given the advantage, the example here of sort of the engine, in your car. You can make an engine, you can make it work by electricity, because we already know that electrical engines existed for a long, long time. But an actual radical departure from that is an invention, and that is rather rarer and more difficult to do. And you need to know what the problem is, as has been mentioned before, in order to find the solution to it. None of this, of course, has anything to do with money. I should add that I worked in the National Health Service in England for a number of years, becoming an anaesthetist, and then I went overseas. I wound up in lecturing and working in the London hospital as a lecturer, and the difficulties that I was asked to overcome there were regarding drugs, which I was not interested in. But I was interested in designing airway devices, And so this we can go to the, oh, I should do this myself. How do I get on to the next slide? Left or right? Right. Ah, yeah. So if you have, did I go two at a time? Yeah, I think I've probably gone the wrong way here. Where are we? Is it right? Right. Yeah, I think I've gone the wrong way. Can you put me back to the beginning? Yeah, okay, got it. So what makes a successful invention? Well, I actually, as I said, I had inventors of both sides of the family. And I think that you do, of course, have to, different places have different inventive problems which require inventions. And you need these, I think, these characteristics. And you may notice that in none of these is the word money mentioned. So you don't necessarily have that as your motive if you're working in the National Health Service, because you get paid anyway, you know, it's a routine thing. So I didn't have the burning urge to become a millionaire. I had the burning urge to solve a problem which was a life or death problem, in fact, in anesthetic practice. These are, if you like, a list of the things which make a successful inventor. I had an inventor uncle who never made any money, but he made some very curious other inventions which were great fun to play with. And of course, you do need a basic educational bent in that direction. You need to have, in these days, I think particularly, you need to have expertise in a particular field, because there have been so many really, really radical inventions, like a telephone, for example, which obviously we then lead to minor inventions, and you get further away from radical inventions as life gets more organized and structured. So you need specialized knowledge these days in the field in which the invention is made. Another thing which is very helpful if you're dealing with a structural device is the ability to think in 3 dimensions, which I think I've probably inherited from both sides of my family. My mother, George, incidentally, was a full-time artist, but she also had to be a diplomat, diplomat's wife, so she had a difficult life, but she painted in many, many countries. So an ability to think in 3 dimensions, and I think you do need to believe in yourself, you need endless patience, and you need to be able to work with other people. In my case, it was, I don't know how many of you here have heard of Mr. Robert Gaines Cooper, but he had all the characteristics which you've listed this morning. Do you know him, by the way? No, well, you've missed something, but he's exactly what you say. And he had all the characteristics which I wanted, which I needed, and which I lacked myself. But he had no idea what I had invented when we met, actually, in 1983 here in Seychelles, when I was invited to come and have a look at the plastics factory to see if it might be a place where I could actually get my prototypes made. I should point out that the prototypes, which are not the ones that I've handed around the room, they are almost products, almost made products. But I started off with prototypes which I made myself. And they did look rather alarming, and they looked very, very different from anything that came before. But what I was trying to do, actually, was to make a seal around the entrance to the larynx so that you didn't have to go through it. That was the main inventive step. Now I've got to press the right thing here. So what's it like to be an inventor? The answer is it's really quite hard. You've got to actually, I think differently from other people. It's been my experience, because sometimes I've found that when people see easily what the solution to a problem is. I can't see it at all. But I can see problems which have a solution which doesn't occur to them. So there is a different way of thinking in many cases, I think. What are the consequences of this? I think an inventor can suffer social isolation, emotionally and intellectually. I certainly went through all this before I was lucky enough to meet Mr. Gaines Cooper here in Seychelles. So actually my main invention, because it took over everything else I was doing in my life, really started with the relationship I had here with Mr. Gaines Cooper, who actually had a factory which wasn't making very much money. It was making plastic bags. And Seychelles isn't big enough to really make a lot of money out of plastics bags. But he actually bought the factory because he loved Seychelles so much. He wanted to, he needed to have a reason to come back here. And I met him when he was wondering what on earth to do with this factory, and I showed him what I'd invented, and that's how the whole story began for me. I think when you succeed, and this is what happened, because I still worked in the National Health Service in England while I was doing this. I was taking time off work to come over to Seychelles and say, can we see if we can make this here? So before one succeeds, one is, and I have been open to ridicule by my peers. What on earth are you doing? This is ridiculous. When one does eventually succeed, ridicule, alas, because one's dealing with colleagues who don't have your way of thinking, it can be replaced by jealousy. So there's an awful lot of having to do everything on your own by being the kind of inventor that I am. And I don't think that it would have succeeded had I not been able to make my own prototypes. So I did this for years and years. And I met Mr. Gaines Cooper in '82. We came out to have a look at the factory a year later, and it wasn't until 1989 that we actually had somebody else making my prototypes. Before that, my own homemade prototypes were being used in India to save people's lives. And that is probably the main thing that people take away from my core invention of the laryngeal mask airway, which is what I gave it that name myself, because there was no such thing. The main thing that is really important about it is that it does save lives where you fail to put this business of putting the tube into the trachea, which is difficult to do because you're going around a corner and you can't see where you're going. So there's a metal instrument called a laryngoscope which pulls everything forward, as you saw in the little bit of video at the beginning. So it's a problem which anaesthetists all over the world know about, and it took me 35 years to try to teach as many people as possible everywhere in the world what the solution to this problem was, which I had thought of. The end of this slide was basically that it takes about 10 years for a radical invention to really take hold, and this has been the case with the laryngeal mask. It seems to be almost like a rule of nature. I'm pressing the wrong thing again. So it's hard to be an inventor for the reasons I've said. So where are we going, left or right? So yes, some of the problems that I encountered were that inventions can, of course, threaten existing habits of practice, and one of the most important skills, manual skills of an inventor, of an anaesthetist, I'm sorry, is to be able to put this tube into place. And when it fails, you are in real trouble. So I was aiming to overcome that problem. And I think all those little problems that you can come up against, I have known. People are prejudiced, they don't like the change. People are frightened, is it going to work or not? They just don't want to change their habits. It makes them feel insecure, and some people can get hostile and feel resentment that there is another way of doing things. So you come across all of that. And of course, the other problem was that you have to persuade your colleagues higher up in the hierarchy that what you're doing is safe, is valid, should be allowed to go ahead. And probably my invention of the laryngeal mask airway LMA could not have been invented today, because there is much, much tighter restrictions on what you're allowed to do. So the world has changed, and with it, I think the ability to make steps, big steps forwards, which this has turned out to be. It's a question really of what you're going to do next. You have to think outside the box. It's always been a very useful phrase, that. The other thing that was very, very difficult was to actually make sure that you put the patient first, because it's true that when you are doing something really new, you really have to make sure that you have done it yourself, to yourself first. Okay. So I came across a problem which probably would not occur to any of you here, which is that you might find yourself actually in conflict with your backer. And Mr. Gates Cooper and I had numerous battles behind the scenes where he, who had not really, you can say, didn't have a scientific bone in his body, but he was a wonderful entrepreneur in the sense of all the factors which have been pointed out by the first speaker. He was an ideal entrepreneur when money was the goal. But money was not my goal. And very often, of course, those around me who were all in the commercial world, because you had to gradually, he assembled a team of people who all were like-minded, thinking we want money, 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 money. Money was the goal. But for me, keeping the thing safe was the main goal, because there's no point in making a device which can save lives if you only get to use it sort of like once in 100 years or something, because people are so good at the existing technology. But that was not the case. And so when people started selling my invention, I became the victim of commercial pressure against myself, because I was standing up on the podium saying, be careful, be careful, be careful. And the people who were selling it were saying, no, it'll work every time. You can do anything you like with it. And you were pulled between the two of them. And that can hurt. It can be very difficult. Because they say, well, look, we want to make more money. So, for example, I made it in silicone, which are the ones that I passed around the room. And silicone is a wonderful material because it's very, very kind to the body, but it can be reused. And I thought, well, this is ideal from the point of view of the patient and the user. You know, it's not going to cost a lot. You can re-sterilize it in an autoclave. But of course, it doesn't please the people who are selling it because they're not making as much money. You know, people used to tell me proudly, I've used this one 500 times. And I would be delighted, but the people selling it were furious. So you're in conflict with the company that's grown up around your idea. So that's one of the problems I had to face. So yes, I think I've said that. So yes, convincing the entrepreneur that you're making money is like persuading your banker that you're creditworthy, something like that. But the point was, in the end of the day, there was nothing between the two of us that couldn't be solved by a slap on the back and a visit to the nearest pub. We got over our problems, and in the end, you know, we really knew that we relied on each other. So it was a great relationship, and I'm very sad to say that he passed away now, so nearly 6 years ago. And I myself have been retired since 2012. Which means that I'm no longer really giving lectures, and this is the first time I've given a lecture in the Seychelles to a non-medical audience. Anyway, we struggle on. I think that these things are probably not terribly relevant, so I'm going to go a bit fast across all this stuff. This was how I finally came back from Seychelles. I worked here for 2 years. I've neglected to say I was an anaesthetist here in the hospital before I invented the laryngeal mask. So this is what happened when I went home afterwards. I was looking for a job in England, and this was just a story about how I finally settled in the London hospital. I wound up starting to make several inventions, which were fortuitously, I had a whole room full of discarded equipment to work on. And I'm a mechanical-minded sort of person, so I was immediately thinking of ways to solve various problems in the operating theatre, which I'm not going to spend time on because they're really more for someone who knows what life is like in an operating theatre. And I did some other research to try to sort of persuade everybody that I was worth employing, which was interesting but irrelevant to this talk, really. I was dragged in several different directions in London. Somehow or other, I attracted the attention of BP, British Petroleum. And they thought, oh, well, this anaesthetist has got ideas. Why don't we see if get him in to see if he can solve a few problems that we've got here. So I started working with them, and it got quite interesting. But I designed a device for trying to make complex molds out of a liquid which would solidify at the intersection of two light beams. And that means you don't have to make complicated molds to make that complicated device. And that worked very well. And at that point, I realized that this was sucking me away from medicine, and I didn't want that. So I left them to it. And I think it was the beginning of the idea of the 3D printing. So I came and went from that scene because I knew that I needed to stay within medicine. So after I'd been 1 year as a lecturer, this is after I came back from working in Seychelles, I'd initiated 12 patent applications. In those days, it was really easy to write your own patent. It wasn't complicated at all. And my ideas were not complicated then, so I had a few patents going. But I had one or two very dramatic saves in my own hospital with my own prototypes, so I realized that I really had to get on with this. And my own professor, who was a wonderful, very dour Scotsman, said briefly, his only comment was, "It's a winner," and so he let me to get on with it. I made a little sketch, and that was the very, very first idea I had in my head of what I was going to make, which is basically an inflatable mask which sits right here behind your larynx. And then the trick was simply to get it into place, which was a lot easier than getting the tube through the vocal cords, which can be damaged if you do put something through them. So it was a less invasive way of maintaining the airway. I was giving, well, this probably is not very interesting. I'm going to pass on those slides. That's what I started with. That was used for dental anesthetics. That is an anatomical specimen of the larynx, which I got from the Institute of Laryngology, of which I'm still a member. And that shows the, how do I pointer? The pointer is where? Pointer. How do you point at things? Oh, you don't know. Okay. Anyway, you can see there's a hole in there, and that's the area where you've got to get into, and it can be quite difficult when you're looking at it from the mouth. So this is technical. I'm going to skip it. That's what I made, basically, out of that round device that you saw. It's in rubber, and that was the very first laryngeal mask which I made. And obviously, you can see a cast of the human pharynx. That's the shape looked at from behind, as though you're looking through your neck from behind. And that's the back side of the mask. And all this was done using super glue, which is a fantastic device. It also sticks very well to your fingers, so it's not actually that easy to use. And so that's the front end, and this is the front end over the pointed end of the white structure, which is simply a cast, plaster of Paris cast. That is the entrance to the esophagus. So I think I'm going to skip this because it's a little bit boring for you. And it took a very long time to publish this. When I did publish it, I was really away. Incidentally, my first publication on this device has now become, I shouldn't blow my own trumpet, it's the most referenced publication in the history of the British Medical Journal, British Anesthesia Journal, sorry. So I was very proud to discover that a few months ago. And this was something which I had to do, ethically speaking, before I could put this into patients. I had to put it into my own throat, yeah? Because if you know that you know what it feels like to have it in, then you can reasonably go to other people and say, it's okay, I've had it in myself, you know, it works, it's all right. So that was what I did. That's a picture of me about to commit this self-torture, but in fact it was easy because you can see that there's a little tube of local anesthetic there which I squirted into my throat, so I didn't feel anything very much, and I just pushed it in and then inflated the cuff, and then I was able to blow my own lungs up with the bag of the anesthetic machine. So I knew that this was going to work absolutely 100%. And that's the moment. I actually lost the photograph. It was done in the London Hospital Medical Department, and I lost the slide years ago. So I also actually saved my own professor, who got into serious trouble with the patient at one point, and I shyly said, "Excuse me, can I help?" And I put in the mask, and it did actually solve the problem. So those sort of things gave me enormous confidence that this was worth doing. We've run out of time now. Okay, sorry. So I'm not going to go on because I think everyone's probably exhausted by now. You all want coffee. I do anyway. so let's leave it at that. That's fine. And perhaps, yep.
That's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, Archie Brain. This man is an absolute genius. I have to say, I had an operation, I think last year, and his name came up, and it was funny because the chap said, "Oh yeah, Archie Brain made that." I said, "Yes, I know him, he lives in Seychelles." Does anybody have any questions for Archie? Okay, Lydia, okay.
I did not manage to finish reading everything. Are you making them here and exporting them? Not before you retired. Were you doing it to export them? Okay. So you sold it. You sold it to the prototypes. Okay. Okay. No, I was just wondering if there are somebody here who's been trained to do it.
Thank you very much, Archie. And the lesson that I draw from that is it is an unlikely partnership. Two Englishmen with their connections happened to be in Seychelles at some point, came here at different times, ended up working together for many, many years. I unfortunately never met. Sorry, how long? 30 years they worked for, and they made a device that's used all over the world that's saving people's lives every day. And every time you have an operation, they'll put one of these laryngeal masks in your throat, which Archie Brain invented. Now that is incredible. So again, a big hand for Archie Brain. Okay, thank you very much, Archie. Right, cue the music. We're going to have a short break, and when we come back, it will be Mr. Ratner himself. So.
the bass keeps running, running, and 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 in this context, there's no disrespect. So when I bust my rhyme, you break your necks. We got 5 minutes for us to disconnect from all intellect and let the rhythm affect us to lose our inhibition. Follow your intuition, free your inner soul and break away from tradition. Cause when we be out, girl, it's full of weed out. You wouldn't believe how we wow. We burn it till it's burned out, turn it till it's turned out. Act up from northwest, east side. Everybody, everybody, let's get into it. Get stupid, get it started, get it started, get it started. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah. Lose control of body and soul. Don't move too fast, people just take it slow. Don't get ahead, just jump into it. Y'all hear about it? The P's will do it. Get started. Get stupid, don't worry about it. People will walk you through it step by step like an infant new kid, inch by inch with a new solution. Transmit hits with no delusion. The feeling's irresistible and that's how we move it. Yo, everybody, everybody, let's get into it. Get stupid, get it started, get it started, get it started. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah. Just keep running, running, and running, running. Come on, y'all. Let's get it. Let's get it. And while I get it. Let's get it. And while I get it. Let's get it. That's the deal. Applicator will bring the bugged out drills. Lose your mind, this is the time. You can't stand still, twist and bang your spine. Bob your head like me, Apple D. Up inside your club or in your Bentley. Get messy, loud and sick. Your mind fast, no more on another head trip. Come them now, do not correct it. Let's get ignorant, let's get hectic. Everybody, everybody, let's get into it. Get stupid, get it started, get it started, get it started. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
There you are, almost. Right, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you have ever done something in your life that you've regretted and thought, I can't believe I did that, and then you had dire consequences? Anybody? At some point, everybody has done something. And I think what happened to me was I was in line to get a big contract, and I didn't get it because of something that I could have done different. Now, when that kind of thing happens, you know, you get all these kinds of messages that that go in your head saying, I'm useless, you know, why did I have to do that? And then you get mother's voice saying, you never listen, and all that. How many of you felt like that before? Anybody? We've all felt like that before. Now, fortunately for me, I love personal development. I love learning from somebody else that's been there before. And I remembered, like it's always memory, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I remember listening to a man. I went to a seminar in London. There was 1,000 people in the hall. And I remember what happened around that time. And the man himself was actually, he was on the stage and he was telling this story. And I was so inspired to learn that, to hear that story. And I thought, you know, I was quite a bit younger, and I thought, yeah, well, that's unfortunate for him, isn't it? But I mean, I wouldn't do anything like that. And I thought, and at the time that everything went wrong, which wasn't that long ago, actually, I said, where's the laptop? There was that video, where is it? YouTube. And I watched the video, and I watched it. I don't watch it once. I watch it and watch it and watch it. And then the more I'm watching it, I'm thinking, you know what would be really cool? To have this person actually in Seychelles, because we had this entrepreneur 5 years ago. I said it would be very interesting to have this person in Seychelles. And then I just thought of all the hurdles that I would have had to jump over to get this person in Seychelles. And I have to say that, you know, many a times that I almost gave up because I just thought this is just too difficult. You know, I mean, it's like having Michael Jackson and Richard Branson together on the stage or something like that, that I just said, maybe it's not for me, maybe it's not for me. And my inspiration over there at the door would keep on pushing me and saying, go on, Claude, you can do it. And if she thought I wasn't playing full out, she would say, come on, make another phone call, or whatever it was that I had to do. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to watch a certain speech. Hopefully you've all looked at the Movers and Shakers group, so you've read about or you've seen clips of Mr. Ratner's story, so you know you're aware of who he is. So we're going to show you his fatal the speech he made, and then I'm going to hand the microphone over to you. So can we start the speech?
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Mr. President, for asking me to address such a prestigious audience. Also in Ratner's, we sell gifts as well as jewellery. Things like a teapot for £2. Or we've got this imitation book that you lay on your coffee table. The pages don't actually open, but they're beautiful curled up corners with imitation antique dust. I know you might say it's not in the best possible taste, but we sold 250,000 of them last year. We also do this nice sherry decanter. It's cut glass, and it comes complete with 6 glasses on a silver-plated tray that your butler could bring you in and serve you drinks on. And it's really only cost £4.95. People say to me, how can you sell this for such a low price? I say, because it's total crap. We even sell a pair of earrings for under £1, gold earrings as well. And some people say, well, that's cheaper than a prawn sandwich from Marks and Spencer's. But I have to say, the sandwich will probably last longer than the earrings. But
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Gerald Ratner in Seychelles.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, my light's gone on my phone. That's not a good start. I'll just turn this off. Thank you. Yeah, that was actually 33 years ago at the Albert Hall in London for the Institute of Directors. 33 years ago, and it seems like yesterday. I wish it was tomorrow. I'd cancel it. Now, there was a program on Sky TV in 2008 which was called, appropriately, the 50 Worst Mistakes of All Time. Now, I won't read them all out to you, but I'll read out one or two. And they do apply mainly in the UK, so I might have to explain to you about it, because at number 46 was the former Welsh Secretary of State in Parliament, who was unfortunately, he claimed to be looking for badgers when he was caught with a gay builder in a wood, so he had to resign. He came in at number 46. So also we've got a presenter in England who does The Breakfast, very famous presenter called Eamon Holmes. And he produced a spelling game DVD, but unfortunately they spelt his name wrong, so they had to scrap all of those DVDs. He came in at number 42. At 31 was the Barclays Bank chief executive, Matt Barrett, who said that the Barclaycard was far too expensive and he wouldn't allow his children to use it. I mean, he had a point, because the Barclaycard, still to this day, the interest on the credit card is outrageous at about 30%, 33%. Donald Trump has actually said that he's going to cap all credit card interest at 10%. But Barclaycard is 33%. And Matt Barrett, but you shouldn't really be saying this about your own product, that it's too expensive and he wouldn't let his children use it. And this was a front page story in a Daily Telegraph. And every time somebody in the UK makes a mistake like that, for some reason or other, they always refer back to my one as the biggest one of all. That's my claim to fame. So I'm reading this story on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, and I'm halfway down the page and they still hadn't mentioned me for once. So I thought I got away with it. But then I looked up and the whole headline plastered across the front page was "Barrett does a Ratner." So even our ex-Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, was accused of doing a Ratner when he said that he was going to provide British jobs for British workers, which at the time we were part of the EU was actually an illegal statement coming from our Prime Minister. And the opposition loved this. One of the MPs, the Tory MP, Michael Gove, stood up and said that was the most stupid thing. He said this in Parliament, by the way. He said this was the most stupid thing that anybody's ever said since Gerald Ratner made his comments. But unfortunately, the chairman turned it down, which would have meant that I wouldn't be doing my 25 miles cycling. I wouldn't be coming out here meeting all you people, which I enjoy. I wouldn't be doing mentoring. I wouldn't be writing books. So my life has become much more varied than running a public company, which means you're committed the whole time. So there's always an upside. And then, strangely enough, I got a phone call last week from Sky TV, who did the 2008 Worst Mistakes of All Time, which I won. You remember that? So I said, what is it? Are you doing the program again? Have I won again? Would you like me to introduce it? Because they actually had the nerve of asking me to introduce the last show, like going to your own gallows. So they said, no, you've turned your fortunes around. We'd like you to do a program where you go into companies that are having difficulty, advise them, help them out. I said, well, that's been done to death, hasn't it? You know, there's so many of those. They said, yeah, well, I think it'll work with you. So I said, well, what channel? They said, oh, it's Sky something, some new channel. I said, I only watch Sky Sports. They said, well, watch this, is good. So I turn it on. It's a load of rubbish. It's endless reality programs and adverts that go on for 6 minutes. So I phoned them back and I said, you know something, I'm not doing your show. I have got some dignity left. And then they said how much they were paying me. And I said, okay, I'll do it. You know, well, you can't afford dignity, can you? You know, at the moment, times are tough. So I went home really pleased about this, and I told my wife, guess what? I said, last week, I said, I'm going to be on TV. I've got my own show. She says, don't do it. I said, why not? She says, because you'll say something stupid and you'll wreck your new business, just like you wrecked your old business. She always builds me up like that. She says, what will you do then? You'll be lying in bed watching daytime TV again. You'll be skint. What will you do then? And I said to her, if that happens, I will then just start all over again. Thanks a lot.
Wow. What a speech. it's not every day that you get somebody like Mr. Ratner on the stage in Seychelles to hopefully inspire a nation. But since he's up there, we have to seize the opportunity. So who's going to ask Mr. Ratner the first question?
They won't want any financial advice after that speech.
Go on, one of you must have a question for him. Okay, all right, the gentleman at the back, okay. Go for it.
I would like to see the video again, where you made the mistake.
Well, I wouldn't.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
You can ask me whatever you like.
Hi, good afternoon, or is it morning? It's all blurred into one, I think. I'd just like to know what makes you the happiest now? What keeps you at peace after all of that adversity, bounce back ability, true grit? What an inspiration, I think we can all say. I think we're all overwhelmed and in complete awe, hence the stunned silence. But that's something that I would really like to know.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. And yes, I don't want to get too cheesy about it, but I am much, much happier, ironically, than when I was earning 850,000 a year. My shares were worth millions. I had a helicopter. I had a load of houses, boats, the lot. And you don't appreciate them somehow. It's annoying, but you don't, because it's too easy. Now, what I do have, I work very hard for, and I can't have a lot of stuff. I have to be careful, because my wife spends quite a lot of money. But apart from that, I really appreciate all the holidays that we go on, whereas I used to go on the private jet, stay in expensive hotels, and everything was wrong. You know, you felt, oh no, this is not good enough. This is good. Now we go Ryanair, we go to, you know, ordinary sort of packaging. We really appreciate it. We enjoy it. It's strange. You enjoy it so much more. I can't explain why, but you know, the businesses that I have today are nothing like the size of my old business. But I can only just give an example of perhaps a footballer who's earning £8 million a year, which they do, and they drive around in, I mean, one of them, Marcus Rashford's got 6 Rolls Royces, and I can't think that that makes him happy. If anything, at that age, you feel a bit guilty about it. But the man or the woman who's worked all her life and retired at the age of 60 and finally got a nice Jaguar, someone would really appreciate it. It's just the way it is. So I can only say that I pinch myself now and think, isn't life good? Unfortunately, just when it's getting so good, I'm 75, so I don't know how much longer I've got of it, but it's really, really, really enjoyable.
Thank you. Okay, Patrick.
Again, welcome to Seychelles, Mr. Ratner.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. I mean, absolutely fantastic presentation. 2 questions, actually. You mentioned a lot about the media and how they came in like an avalanche towards you. So how do you perceive maybe the development of maybe jealousy in our society, especially maybe in England and America? And the second question is, where did you get that courage to stand up and the leverage to continue? Thank you.
Well, on the second point, that I probably would still be watching daytime TV if it wasn't my wife. Sometimes you need somebody to give you a kick up the backside and tell you, and it's often your wife, because nobody else will speak to you in that way. And it was her that forced me to get out and do. I had no choice, otherwise I'd lost everything. I even lost my marriage. So sometimes, you know, you're helping somebody by telling them the truth. But it did take me 7 years of doing nothing before I went back. But it was a wonderful feeling when I got back in and I realized that I could do it, because I really believed that I couldn't from what I was reading in the press. Why the press are like they are, and they build you up to knock you down. And the reason I got knocked down so much is because I got built up so much. I had a massive amount of press, and that in hindsight was a mistake, because I used to be in all the magazines talking about my dog or my cat, all a load of nonsense just to put my face in the which business people do They think to get their face. They love to see their face in the paper. But they look stupid, actually. And the most successful business people that I know are the ones that actually pay money to keep out of the press because they know what they're like. I courted the press, and everyone said they're building up to knock you down. I don't think it's as bad in America because I had 1,000 shops in America and not one thing was ever written about this. And I was well known in America. America, they do like to, they respect people who, they cheer on people who achieve stuff. In the UK, because there's so many people. If you do a book on business in America, it's going to sell 1 million times better than a business in the UK, because there's so many people in the UK who don't want to be entrepreneurs. I know you hear about a lot, but they don't. It's just a mindset. They want to go down to the pub once a week and just, they don't want to be part of it. So their life is awful. So they put on Twitter or X horrible things about people that are successful. I mean, that's just the way they are. And it is the British disease, in a way. There's a lot of wonderful things about the UK. I don't want to stand here, come to the Seychelles and knock it. But one of the things is the attitude towards success is terrible. And I get the most terrible abuse every day on Twitter from people who actually, it doesn't bother me because I know why they do write stuff, because they're actually unhappy about themselves. That's the truth. And that's why they love it to see somebody who's successful fall. They just love it. But it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, thank you very much. Gerald, I've got one question for you, actually,
Yes.
just for a little bit of fun. Having been through what you've been through, and actually having to have the courage, as Patrick said, to just keep on going, and flying so far to come to Seychelles to speak to us, what's one of the fun things that might slightly trouble you these days?
Well, one of the fun things was that I said to Claude that if nobody asks a question, could I plant one with you? And I was looking forward to nobody asking a question, because the question that Claude was going to ask was, do you regret saying what you said? And my answer was, that's the most stupid question that anybody's ever asked me in my life. How could you think of that? But strangely enough, if I could make the biggest mistake of all time, most terrible, which is officially the worst corporate mistake ever, if I can turn around and say that I'm probably on balance better off through doing it, because my life is much more varied. I probably would have been through my 5th marriage. I'm still now married to that Moira for 35 years, happily. I got, it's probably done me good. I was probably arrogant. It's brought me down, and I appreciate things. So if I can benefit from that mistake, you think about when you make a mistake and you don't lose 500 million quid and you beat yourself up over it. Don't. Part of life is making mistakes. You benefit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerald. Thank you very much. Sorry, there's another. Hang on. There's one more question.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to charge for you.
Mr. Ratner, while you were watching the soap, the dramas, daytime dramas in bed.
The dramas?
Yeah. Did you ever consider going into being a comedian?
Thank you for that. Somebody once said that comedians, most comedians want to be millionaires, but in Gerald's case, he's a millionaire who wants to be a comedian. So I do like making people laugh, unfortunately, since I was a kid, and that's obviously how I got into trouble in the first place. When I went to the Albert Hall, I could have done a straight-laced speech, but I couldn't do that. I had to make people laugh, and that was, that's how it was caused. Did you want to ask something? Yeah, he wanted. We're getting extra ones here.
Yes, hi. Certainly your resilience is highly commendable. I have to give you that. And second, what's your opinion about lazy business ethics? Because in Seychelles, we do tend to have that sort of problem. We got a lot of people that wants to do business, but they don't want to put that first foot forward. And thirdly, I can see that, I appreciate now that having a partner or a good friend is really a big help for you to get out of all that mess that you went through.
Yeah, you do need, even though I got so much abuse from everybody, the people that mattered to me supported me, and that's very important, because they knew me. They knew I wasn't this arrogant snob that the press were painting me to be. But I think that in my case, it took me those 7 years of wasting my time before I got out there. And when you go out there, it's a lot easier than actually avoiding doing it. You know, if you stare these challenges, go up and face them, you'll probably win. But where you'll lose is, as you say, people who just won't take the plunge. But if you do take the plunge, you'll probably succeed. But people don't. They're scared. They're in denial. They think their life's fine when it isn't. And that's why my wife did me a favor in saying, your life is not fine. You've got to get out there. And God, did she do me a favor? Because when I got out there, it was fantastic. And there is nothing better than starting a business from scratch, creating something that didn't exist before and making it into something. And a lot of it is to do with just sheer determination. But I would, if you do something like that and start a business, I would really consider this two-door approach. Do a business, and you can do it. There's so many ways. You can sell something before you buy it or whatever, but take the risk out of it. So if it doesn't work, you can walk back in, you've lost something, and try again. So good luck with that, and thanks very much once again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Gerald. Now, putting on an event like this, although for Eden Blue, I should think it's probably a relatively small event. They do these things every day, and they're probably double or triple the size. For us, it was 6 months worth of planning, a lot of phone calls, and a lot of stress. So I'm thankful to have a wonderful venue that makes that very easy. So I would like to call Claire to the stage. So here we have one of the unsung heroes that helped to put this event together. Put your hands together for Claire. Thank you very much. There you go. If you're going to have any events arranged, do them here and deal with Claire. She's excellent. We come here like every other week. And she's that good.
Sorry, I'm going to take it away from him. He's not going to stop. Now, I would like you, if I may ask, to give him a standing ovation because he deserves it. Believe it or not, he did it himself, alone, by himself, on his laptop and his phone. He got you all in here. I didn't do it. He did. And I think he deserves a lot. And fantastic. I would also like to thank the volunteers. I'm quite blessed. Whenever I need people to come and help, they just say, hey, call me in. And I've got the two lovely ladies who actually came and helped as volunteers. Thank you.
Another person that I would like to call, actually, he doesn't have to come here because he's a bit shy. He likes to hide behind the cameras. Alan, can you just step into the middle? Step into the middle. You're not going to get away from it. The videographer that if it wasn't for him, Movers and Shakers just would not happen. So give Alan Boniface a big round of applause. I remember I think when we started going interviewing people, he said, well, Claude, you should go around and interview people. And I was just trying to think of a concept around it. And, you know, we'd wake up at 5 o'clock and come to the breakfast meeting at 6, or go wherever we need to go and interview people. So when you watch the things on the screen, Movers and Shakers in Paradise, The Road Show, it's all thanks to him, actually. And if he hadn't said it, then, you know, we wouldn't really be here and have the Movers and Shakers brand. Now, how many of you used to like karaoke? Anybody? You can get it if you really want, but you must try. But you must try, try and try, try and try. You succeed at last. You can get it if you really want. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe you're going to be able to watch it on YouTube, or some of it at some point in the next week or so. We are filming season 2. If you know anybody who has an entrepreneurial flair, who has a good story, who wants to be on TV. I always wanted to be on TV, actually, at some point. Now, I want other people to come on TV, on the show, and they want to be a mover and shaker in Paradise, because we've had some amazing entrepreneurs. In fact, who's still here? Archie, stand up. Archie Brain, ladies and gentlemen, an amazing inventor. And I can't thank you enough. So, I mean, you're following the footsteps of the great. That's fine, you can sit down. Another person I'd say that I would like to thank, really, in a sense, for kicking my butt, saying, Claude, we've got to make it happen. I want to come to Seychelles. Mike Southern, please, on your feet. And Mike has been absolutely brilliant. I'm going to England on Saturday, actually, with Mr. Ratner. So we're hoping to do Movers and Shakers in the city as well. So we follow the brand. So once again, thank you very much for giving your time. I hope you've learned something. And I hope that I can say with confidence, if we don't get another COVID, see you this time next year for Movers and Shakers in Paradise. Good afternoon.
Nous autres vacances.